Hello and welcome. So in this video we're going to be talking about exactly how much we spend in a week living in Bali. So first of all, I'll start with the accommodation, and we actually spend £138 per person, which is 2.8 million IDR, which is Indonesian rupees a week.
It's a private apartment, so we've got our kitchen area, bathroom, living area, bedroom, and then there's a communal pool area, which is nice just to kind of break away from your apartment.
And also includes daily cleaning.
And weekly laundry as well.
And they also bring us, I think it's 18 litres of water per week as well, which is great.
They always top up our water jug, so that's good. And there are cheaper options that you can have, like a guest house where you just have a room within a shared villa, or you can have like a really big private villa going all out. So it kind of ranges. I think we're kind of middle ground in terms of apartments. And for the whole month, it's £1,100. So it's kind of mid-range, much cheaper than London.
And the second cost to consider is gyms. Now, gyms, I've learned that in Bali is quite expensive compared to everything else. Everything is relatively cheap in Bali, apart from the gyms, which I'm not sure why. So our gym we go to, Body Factory Bali, actually costs £51 a week, which is 1.4 million Indonesian rupees. But there are a lot of cheaper options out here. So you get some gyms which, you know, probably spending, let's say, £5 to £10 a week. It just depends on what you're after, really. If you want more just a generic, more basic weightlifting gym, then there's definitely cheaper options. Whereas the more expensive ones, like the ones we go to, it's more like a resort. You know, you've got the main weightlifting areas, then you've got the cafes included, you've got the saunas, the ice baths, the swimming pools. So again, just depends on what you want, but definitely budget more expensive for the gyms when you come to Bali, because they're a lot more than you think they would be.
And sometimes going to a gym that is expensive is good for the network, because you're often surrounded by entrepreneurs, business people, or more wealthier people. So it's good to make those connections and networks. So the third cost that you would face in Bali is having an eSIM, which is really good because you can actually have data traveling around the whole island and not rely on Wi-Fi. And with eSIMs as well, you also can keep your own number on WhatsApp, which is good. So you can still connect with the same people you have in your contacts. And per week, we spend £11.50, which is around 250k Indonesian rupees.
So another big cost you really need to consider when you're coming to Bali is your way of traveling around the island. So we actually got a scooter that we hired out, and it's actually £30 a week whilst being out here, which is really cheap because I think it equates to around £4 a day, which is really good. And the petrol as well for the scooters are really cheap as well. I think it is 85k to fill up the whole tank of petrol, which is around £4. And I believe it lasts up to 30 kilometers, which is great, really. We've only topped up twice in the whole month, so that's really good. But if you don't want to get a scooter, you can use Grab and Gojeks as well. So they're like an Uber equivalent. However, it's not just cars, it is scooters you can jump on the back of as well. And they're really cheap. I think you went on a 40-minute ride and it costs, do you remember how much roughly?
So 40-minute car ride, which was around £14, which is really good. And then the scooters are even cheaper. Sometimes you can be spending like 80p, £1 on your trips. So it's definitely worth it if you don't want to drive yourself on a scooter. And
we definitely recommend getting scooters over cars because the traffic out in Bali is crazy. I think whatever you get, if you get a scooter, it's going to be a quarter of the duration it is to get to your destination, just because of the traffic is stupid, crazy in Bali. That's what I can say.
So another thing to consider in Bali is food and groceries. So we normally have breakfast at home, we cook our own meals, and have lunch and dinner out or takeaways. So for our grocery weekly shop per person is around £20, and that will cover our breakfast. And then when we go out for lunch and dinner, it's around £5 each, which is around about 100k Indonesian rupees for lunch and a drink, and then dinner as well is probably the same. So this is kind of mid-range restaurants. But if you wanted to go for a more nicer restaurant, maybe on the weekend you want to go for a bit fancier, then you're looking at around maybe 250 Indonesian rupees, which is still very cheap, because when we've gone to like a fancy dinner for ourselves, it's been about £30 for both of us, including drinks and a meal. So it's definitely way cheaper than considering it against London.
Even though it's cheap, it does add up. So I think you definitely need to take into consideration when you are budgeting, you know, for your food when you're out here, because you're going to be spending, you know, little bits of money here and there, but it does add up. So just keep an eye on it and keep track of exactly how much you're spending, because before you know it, you might just blow all your budget on food.
Yeah, because you're thinking it's so cheap all the time, you just tap and tap in and you're not actually tracking how much you're spending.
And another expense to consider is what you're going to do during the week. So, you know, your weekly activities. So for us, we can kind of only base it on what we've been doing, and we be getting, I'll say, massages once a week. And I think a massage per person costs around £8. It can vary from between £6 to £10, but average £8 a week. So that's roughly how much we spend on our kind of weekly activities. But again, it depends on the individual. You might want to do, you know, surfing, snorkeling, or do lessons, or do whatever. So just take into consideration your budget for your weekly activities as well, because it will add up, especially if you're here for a shorter time and you're doing a lot more tourist activities, then it will start adding up. But for us, weekly massages, £8, which again, stupidly cheap compared to London. I think in London, an hour massage will cost you
maybe like £60.
£60, yeah. So at the moment, we're definitely utilising the cheap cost for the massages.
Yeah. And on the weekends as well, we might go to like a beach club, which is where you probably spend most of your monies, because the beach club prices are more towards like the European or maybe American kind of price range. So when we went to Sundays, it was 140 for the both of us, which is a lot compared to other Bali prices. So just consider that if you want to go for like a more fancier activity, then it will be more pricey.
So the total cost that we spend a week in Bali per person is £342, and that is also 70 million Indonesian rupees.
And the total amount of money we spend per month is £1,370, which is around 280 million. But again, we have split most things between us as we are a couple. So things like the accommodation and the scooter will probably be a bit more if you are single traveling. So just consider that as well, that we have split some things because we are a couple.
That is the total price that we do spend per week and per month living in Bali. So if you're traveling here, short term or long term, please take into consideration all of the prices. And I hope you found this video useful. And if you did, please like and subscribe, and a lot more videos are coming your way.